Hello everyone, this is the 5th Eventful Revelation Fellowship. I'm with Dr. Roger Paul, and today we are going to study paper 145, 4 Eventful Days at Capernaum, and that starts on page 1628.1. It's also on 145.1 of the paper. Okay. Oh, Millie, would you like to start reading? Well, let's have a little prayer first.
You do that.
We'll start reading. Dear, would you pray for us today?
Dear Heavenly Father, Lord God, in the quiet of these moments we come to you and ask for our minds to be open and receptive to the knowledge that we'll be reading from the Urantia Book. Help us to understand and have a greater and deeper relationship with Jesus in the readings, and help us to learn well and to pass on to others as much as we can. We thank you for so many blessings in our lives and for living for life. Thank you for life. In your name, Jesus Christ, God of heaven, we pray and give thanks. Amen.
Amen. Okay, Millie, would you like to start out?
Jesus and the apostles arrived in Capernaum the evening of Tuesday, January 13. As usual, they made their headquarters at the home of Zebedee in Bethsaida. Now that John the Baptist had been sent to his death, Jesus prepared to launch out in the first open and public preaching tour of Galilee. The news that Jesus had returned rapidly spread throughout the city, and early the next day, Mary, the mother of Jesus, hastened away, going over to Nazareth to visit her son Joseph.
Okay, so this is really the first big preaching tour they started after the death of John the Baptist. And this is the map of the area. It's hard to tell from this picture, but you can look this up on the slides and look kind of larger. All right. Jill, would you take the next one?
Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, Jesus spent at the Zebedee's house instructing his apostles preparatory to their first extensive public preaching tour. He also received and taught many earnest inquirers, both singly and in groups. Through Andrew, he arranged to speak in the synagogue on the coming Sabbath day.
Okay. Now remember, later on, Jesus and the apostles were banned from the synagogue, right? Because of their teachings. So this is before that. It's hard to imagine, isn't it? Rodney, would you take the next one?
All right. Situated here.
All right.
All right. Late on Friday evening, Jesus' baby sister, Ruth, secretly paid him a visit. They spent almost an hour together in a boat anchored a short distance from the shore. No human being, save John Zebedee, ever knew of this visit, and he was admonished to tell no man. Ruth was the only member of Jesus' family who consistently and unwaveringly believed in the divinity of his earth mission from the times of her earliest spiritual consciousness right on down through his eventful ministry, death, resurrection, and ascension. And she finally passed on to the worlds beyond, never having doubted the supernatural character of her brother's mission in the flesh. Baby Ruth was the chief comfort of Jesus as regards his earth family throughout the trying ordeal of his trial, rejection, and crucifixion.
Now remember when we were talking from paper 47 Wednesday about teaching children, you know, in their ways. This is a perfect example. Jesus teaching Ruth as she was coming up in divine ideas and the concepts of God. And what did she do? She just followed that way all the way through her life. You know.
Why did he not want anybody to know about her visit to him?
Because it was a personal meeting with just her and him, number one. And the other thing, he didn't want anyone to glorify Ruth because of this personal touch he was giving her and this personal attention that he was giving her after he died. You know, so the main thing when he got to his adult life and all his siblings were grown was that he tried to treat them as equal human beings like every other human being. But of course, Ruth was his favorite, you know, little girl, you know, as they was growing up. So this was a personal meeting, and it had nothing to do with anyone else. So that's why he did that. It's for her number one, for her personal edification of just having this just for her, not to share with anyone else. Because after his death, I'm sure every moment that people could remember about Jesus' death, everybody wanted to know about it.
Well, Roger,
Yeah.
true after his death, however, the death was not the thing, it was the resurrection.
Yeah.
Because until the resurrection, they really wondered if it was the truth or not.
That's
Yeah, that's
When
true.
he came back, it was like, whoa,
Yeah.
this guy was telling the truth.
No one else had ever raised themselves from the dead.
And then his
Nobody
son-
will ever.
Yeah. Mhm. All right, let's keep going here.
1. The draught of fishes. On Friday morning of the same week, when Jesus was teaching by the seaside, the people crowded him so near the water's edge that he signaled to some fishermen occupying a nearby boat to come to his rescue. Entering the boat, he continued to teach the assembled multitude for more than 2 hours. This boat was named Simon. It was the former fishing vessel of Simon Peter and had been built by Jesus' own hands. On this particular morning, the boat was being used by David Zebedee and 2 associates who had just come in near shore from a fruitless night of fishing on the lake. They were cleaning and mending their nets when Jesus requested them to come to his assistance.
Okay, so you remember Jesus was a boat builder for a while, right? This was actually one of the boats that he built, you know, that they were talking
He
about.
named it Simon.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting, and this is a picture of the boat and the fishing. There's another one in here too. This is a tapestry of the same thing. All right. Steve?
Okay. After Jesus had finished teaching the people, he said to David, "As you were delayed by coming to my help, now let me work with you. Let us go fishing. Put out into yonder deep and let down your nets for a draught." But Simon, one of David's assistants, answered, "Master, it is useless. We toiled all night and took nothing. However, at your bidding we will put out and let down the nets." And Simon consented to follow Jesus' directions because of a gesture made by his master, David. When they had proceeded to the place designated by Jesus, they let down their nets and enclosed such a multitude of fish that they feared the nets would break, so much so that they signaled to their associates on the shore to come to their assistance. When they had filled all 3 boats with fish, almost to sinking, this Simon fell down at Jesus' knees, saying, "Depart from me, Master, for I am a sinful man." Simon and all who were concerned in this episode were amazed at the draught of fishes. From that day, David Zebedee, this Simon, and their associates forsook their nets and followed Jesus.
Pretty impressive, huh?
That's a lot of fish for 3 boats to be full.
That's right. That's a lot of fish. But this was in no sense a miracle, a miraculous draught of fishes. Jesus was a close student of nature. He was an experienced fisherman and knew the habits of the fish in the Sea of Galilee. On this occasion, he merely directed these men to the place where the fish were usually to be found at this time of day. But Jesus' followers always regarded this as a miracle.
I would have loved to have gone fishing with Jesus.
Yeah. What a story that would have been.
I'm telling you.
Miller?
Afternoon at the synagogue. The next Sabbath, at the afternoon service in the synagogue, Jesus preached his sermon on the will of the Father in heaven. In the morning, Simon Peter had preached on the kingdom. At the Thursday evening meeting of the synagogue, Andrew had taught, his subject being the new way. At this particular time, more people believed in Jesus in Capernaum than any other one city on earth.
Isn't that amazing?
As Jesus taught in the synagogue the Sabbath afternoon, according to custom, he took the first text of the law, reading from the book of Exodus. And you shall serve the Lord your God, and he shall bless your bread and your water, and all sickness shall be taken away from you. He chose the second text from the prophets, reading from Isaiah. Arise and shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord has risen upon you. Darkness may cover the earth, and gross darkness the people, but the Spirit of the Lord shall arise upon you, and the divine glory shall be seen with you. Even the Gentiles shall come to the light, and many great minds shall surrender to the brightness of this light.
And what is he talking about, the darkness and the brightness? The darkness is the ignorance and rebellion, right?
Mhm.
And the lightness is the knowledge of the Father, right? And the brotherhood of man. It's the darkness and lightness. And you know, this verse really, you can apply to today just like you could then. Yeah, really could. Because the world may be covered in darkness much of the time, but the lightness is shining through.
Okay, this sermon was an effort on Jesus' part to make clear the fact that religion is a personal experience. Among other things, the Master said,
Go ahead and take that next paragraph.
"You well know that, while a kind-hearted father loves his family as a whole, he so regards them as a group, because of his strong affection for each individual member of that family. No longer must you approach the Father in heaven as a child of Israel, but as a child of God. As a group, you are indeed the children of Israel, but as individuals, each one of you is a child of God. I have come not to reveal the Father to the children of Israel, but rather to bring this knowledge of God and the revelation of his love and mercy to the individual believer as a genuine personal experience. The prophets have all taught you that Yahweh cares for his people, that God loves Israel. But I have come among you to proclaim a greater truth, one which many of the later prophets also grasped, that God loves you, every one of you, as individuals. All these generations have you had a national or racial religion. Now I have come to give you a personal religion."
So Jesus was trying to stress the fact that he was not only teaching the Jews or Israel, but he was teaching all people that God's relationship was individual to each and every one of them, regardless of what religion they are, regardless of what nationality they are or race. So he was bringing this concept of God the Father as the God of all religions, and our relationship to God is totally personal. We can still have the groups. We can still participate in the groups, but our relationship as religion goes really is a personal religious experience, right?
Up until that time, I don't think any human being on earth had grasped the idea that religion was a personal experience.
No, everything was always grouped, right?
Yeah.
You know, the Jews, the Gentiles, you know, you were associated with how you believe with which group you belong to, right?
So I'll show you some people have grasped that.
Yeah, but it wasn't a common thing. Dear?
But even this is not a new idea. Many of the spiritually minded among you have known this truth, inasmuch as some of the prophets have so instructed you. Have you not read in the scriptures where the prophet Jeremiah says, "In those days they shall no more say, the fathers have eaten sour grapes, and the children's teeth are set on edge. Every man shall die for his own iniquity. Every man who eats sour grapes, his teeth shall be set on edge. Behold, the days shall come when I will make a new covenant with my people, not according to the covenant which I made with their fathers when I brought them out of the land of Egypt, but according to the new way. I will even write my law in their hearts. I will be their God, and they shall be my people. In that day they shall not say one man to his neighbor, 'Do you know the Lord?' Nay, for they shall all know me personally, from the least to the greatest."
Okay, what are they talking about this eating sour grapes and setting your teeth on edge? Anybody know?
Well, I would assume it'd be strict laws and, keeping people ill at ease.
Well, it comes back to you reap what you sow. Okay, the Jews believed that any sin that the fathers did was passed down. The results of the sin was passed down to the children and the children's children. And this is what he's talking about when they say here, in those days the fathers had eaten sour grapes and the children's teeth are set on edge. They believe that the children paid for the sins of the father. And what he's trying to do is straighten out this concept that we all, our sins, the things that happen to us are the result from our own personal sin, not our fathers or not our fathers' fathers. So basically, he's also saying here that during this period of time, they would go around and say, "Do you know the Lord?" or "Do you know the Lord?" etc., etc. He's also saying there's time coming when all beings will know of the Lord. And whether they accept Him or not is totally up to them. Okay. Steve?
Have you not read these promises? Do you not believe the scriptures? Do you not understand that the prophet's words are fulfilled in what ye behold this very day? And did not Jeremiah exhort you to make religion an affair of the heart, to relate yourselves to God as individuals? Did not the prophet tell you that the God of heaven would search your individual hearts? And were you not warned that the natural human heart is deceitful above all things, and oftentimes desperately wicked?
Does this not make sense? He's talking about our religious experience is a personal one again here, right? It's not between you and someone else or you and your father or anything. It's a personal experience. So you have to take total possession and own the things you do and deal with these things yourself, right? Not for someone else.
Question.
Yeah,
There is this sentence in the middle that says,
let me go back.
"Do you not understand that the prophet's words are fulfilled in what you behold this very day?"
He's talking about himself.
About himself being
Yeah,
the fulfillment of
the prophecy.
prophecies. So that's something that I'm not familiar with the scripture and prophecy and all that. And maybe too long a question to answer. But I've always wondered about those prophecies and the fulfillment of the prophecies. What it was about.
Yeah.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that it was because of Melchizedek, that what he taught at Salem, and then the word passed down. Because Melchizedek did say that there'll be another man
Yeah.
to come, another
Another son of God. Yeah.
I believe that's it.
And that's where this whole concept of all the prophecies about the Messiah was directly related to what Melchizedek taught, that the Son of God would come and enlighten the world type thing. But all the messianic prophecies really came from the teachings of Melchizedek. Maybe some of it from Adam and Eve, but most of it was lost by the time Melchizedek was here. So he really reinstilled in Abraham, Isaac, and those prophets that came later the concept that a new Son of God was coming. And this is the prophecies that he's talking about here, is he's the fulfillment of these long-awaited prophecies of the Son of God coming. You know, I am he, basically.
With the promise that those prophecies have been corrupted by human
Oh yeah,
thoughts, right?
yeah.
And the Messiah and all that, and I guess the people of these worlds, they may believe that as well, and there would be a reason to believe of Jesus as the Messiah as well.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Gio. And the other thing is the messianic prophecies give more of a tinge, you know, instead of the kingdom of heaven and the kingdom to come, they take it as a political kingdom, you know, and that's why they believe the Messiah would be this huge political ruler. And even when Jesus was growing up, before he became totally aware of who he was, okay, as a young man, he wondered who this Messiah was, because he knew that was not him. You know, and as he became more and more aware of his divinity and who he was, he knew that the prophecies were not correct, you know, because he knew that he was not going to fulfill this military leader, be on the throne in front of all the world, that sort of thing. That was not the leadership that Melchizedek taught or was teaching when he was here, but that's the impression they got from it. So, and it even confused Jesus as a young boy. You know, he was wondering who this Messiah was coming, because as he got older, he would know about these things, you know, but there wasn't. So, okay. Let's keep going. Who's up next? Diane? Did you just read, Robin?
No,
I just read, I thought, didn't I?
Oh, it's me? Okay. Have you not also read where Ezekiel taught even your fathers that religious must become a reality in your individual experiences? No more shall you use the proverb which says, the fathers have eaten.
That's right.
Okay. The fathers have eaten sour grapes, and children's teeth are set on edge. As I live, says the Lord God, behold, all souls are mine. As the soul of the Father, so also the soul of the Son. Only the soul that sins shall die. And then Ezekiel foresaw even this day when he spoke in behalf of God, saying, a new heart also will I give you, and a new spirit will I put within you. So each and every being is judged on their own credit, right? So,
Okay, could we say here this eating the sour grapes and the children's teeth are set on edge, that we pick up the concepts of our fathers, of just the general ideas of man, and now what he's saying is we are going to start understanding our relationship with God and develop a whole new concept about life in general. You know, we're no longer going to be burdened by the traditions of man.
the things of past, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Stephen. That's exactly what he's saying here. All right, let's keep going. Did you take the next one down?
No more should you fear that God will punish a nation for the sin of the individual. Neither will the Father in heaven punish one of his believing children for the sins of a nation, albeit the individual member of any family must often suffer the material consequences of family mistakes and group transgressions. Do you not realize that the hope of a better nation or a better world is bound up in the progress and enlightenment of the individual?
So the individual will never be punished for the sins of the nation, right? And the nation will never be punished for the sins of the individual. Okay, but we must live through the material consequences of the mistakes we make together. So everything we do in life affects everyone else, right? That makes sense? So if we do something as a group that's horribly wrong, will it affect us? Yes, because of the consequences of what happens to the group. But that is not an individual punishment, right? That's just the consequences of the wrong decisions we make as groups. Makes sense? And that still works today in the same way. So.
Then the Master portrayed that the Father in heaven, after man discerns his spiritual freedom, wills that his children on earth should begin the eternal ascent to the paradise career, which consists in the creature's conscious response to divine earth of the indwelling spirit to find the Creator, to know God, and to seek God.
Do y'all see that mentioning the paradise career in the middle of this part of the life of Christ? Now that y'all understand the paradise career, does this not make this more meaningful? If you didn't know about the paradise career, you would read over this and not have any understanding or comprehension of what he's talking about. Right? So studying the first part of the book is important, isn't it?
Okay. The apostles were greatly helped by this sermon. All of them realized more fully that the gospel of the kingdom is a message directed to the individual, not to the nation.
Even though the people of Capernaum were familiar with Jesus' teaching, they were astonished at his sermon on the Sabbath day. He taught indeed as one having authority and not as the scribes.
You know, it's kind of funny. We don't really appreciate a paragraph like this because we don't understand the deep traditions that was instilled in the Jewish people when he came here. And so when Jesus started teaching stuff like this, it must have been like a breath of fresh air, you know, a whole new concept to him.
Just as Jesus finished speaking, a young man in the congregation who had been much agitated by his words was seized with a violent epileptic attack and loudly cried out. At the end of the seizure, when recovering consciousness, he spoke in a dreamy state, saying, "What have we to do with you, Jesus of Nazareth? You are the Holy One of God. Have you come to destroy us?" Jesus bade the people be quiet and, taking the young man by the hand, said, "Come out of it." And he was immediately awakened.
And what was this tagged as in the Bible?
Yes.
A possession,
Mhm.
right?
Wasn't it?
No.
Why would he say that?
Because he was epileptic in his own mind, was thinking these things through. You know? So he felt like he was separated from everyone, you know. And he was trying to find his individual place in all this that was going on. So this basically was Jesus literally taking the epilepsy and bringing it out of it. You know, so
But how?
you would call this more of a healing than you would a devil possession, right?
Do we know whether there was actually healing, supernatural healing, or anyone would have said, "Come out of it," he would have.
The
Next
paragraph.
paragraph. All right. This young man was not possessed of an unclean spirit or demon. He was a victim of ordinary epilepsy. But he had been taught that his affliction was due to the possession of an evil spirit. He believed this teaching and behaved accordingly in all that he thought and said concerning his ailment. The people all believed that such phenomena were directly caused by the presence of unclean spirits. Accordingly, they believed that Jesus had cast a demon out of the man. But Jesus did not at that time cure his epilepsy, not until later on that day after sundown. Was this man really healed? Long after the day of Pentecost, the Apostle John, who was the last to write down Jesus' doings, avoided all reference to the so-called acts of casting out of devils. And this he did in view of the fact that such cases of demon possession never occurred after Pentecost. Several things in this paragraph of importance. First is he did not actually heal the man at the synagogue, right? Later on in the mass sundown healing, he did heal the man of epilepsy, okay? But the other important fact of this is that the people of this day thought every kind of illness that would give any kind of phenomena like epilepsy or seizures or anything like that, they all thought it was because of possession of unclean spirits or devils.
And they didn't have doctors.
They didn't have doctors. Yeah, no knowledge of, yeah. So that's why John, after writing these things down later, because of Pentecost, no devil possession was possible any longer. And what is that? The adjusters, right? The Spirit of truth was poured out on all flesh, which protects you from devil possession. Plus, all humankind was given adjusters that had not already received it. Can a person have an adjuster and be possessed of a devil at the same time? No. You can't have evil and perfection in the same vessel. Okay? You either have one or the other. So, because of the pouring out of the Spirit of truth, and because all beings were giving thought adjuster, devil possession was no longer possible.
For some reason, I thought it was also because they kind of put the evil spirits.
The Midwayers, the Midwayers were taken away right after Pentecost, too. Right. You're
I
right
thought
about
it was
that.
after his transfiguration, or
Well, Pentecost was after the transfiguration. Remember? So.
Well, you know, in our meeting on Wednesday, something came up about the Iceman. We were talking
Mhm.
about that, and
yeah, Tim brought that.
exactly, Tim brought that up. And you had said that even though he had done all these horrendous things, that the thought adjuster was still with him.
Yes.
And I mean, if the thought adjuster would leave every time we did something really awful,
Yeah, it'd be terrible.
it'd be
wouldn't it?
horrible.
Yes.
So, I don't know that you call it demon possession, but certainly
That's not-
oppression.
No, that's not demon possession,
That's-
that's mental illness.
Mental illness.
Yeah, there's a big difference
Okay,
between
all
that.
right, then that's,
And the thought adjuster, now let me make this clear too, the thought adjuster has a right to leave with your personality or your mind memory patterns when they feel that you're not mentally non-recoverable. In other words, if there's no possibility that you will be mentally normal again, that your thought adjuster can leave and wait for you to die on the mansion worlds, and then you'll be revived then.
okay, like people with Alzheimer's.
People with Alzheimer's, when they lose all consciousness of who they are, then they're not a functioning normal person at that time. At that time, they're a vessel, and the celestial beings are just waiting for the body to run out.
Okay.
At that point, who makes you does not completely leave till the guardian Seraphim leaves. When the Seraphim leaves, even if the adjuster is there, or not there.
Not there.
Yeah, because the Seraphim is not allowed to leave until the body actually has been terminated.
I appreciate it, thank you.
Yeah.
Does it mean the personality remains with the material body for as long as the material body is alive?
Yeah, the soul does.
The soul
But
does.
The soul does,
Personality
but
goes
the
with
thought
thought
adjuster is not required to stay until the body actually exhausts completely. And when the mental patterns are no longer recoverable, then the thought adjuster can leave and wait for you on the mansion worlds.
But the soul
The
says,
soul
stays.
stays.
and so does personality? Where does personality
No, the
go?
personality is the thought adjuster.
Person-
No, 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 no,
No,
no.
no, no.
No?
No. No. The personality is part of the soul. See, the human gives the thought adjuster personality.
The thought adjuster wants personality.
That's right. The thought adjuster wants personality, so the thought adjuster does not. The personality is a gift of the Father, the thought adjuster.
Oh gosh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Your personality is totally separate from the adjuster. The adjuster does not get personality till you fuse. Okay, so that essence which makes your soul is part of your personality, and that is the trust of the guardian seraphim. And that is why also that an archangel has a copy of all records of you. So if that guardian seraphim was to rebel, just like it did during the Lucifer rebellion, that sole trust is assumed by the archangel immediately. So if you, for instance, were in the middle of a rebellion and your archangel went into rebellion, that sole trust is taken away from those angels, given to the archangel. So when you are revived on the mansion worlds, who's there to bring your soul and personality back? The archangel, not the guardian angel. Right? That's his responsibility. That's why on the mansion world, when you awaken, there is what? The thought adjuster, guardian seraphim, and an archangel. Okay? All three of them are always there. He's the guarantee that you are who you are when you get that new body. The archangel is. Okay? Most powerful angel in our universe. Archangel. Never defaults.
What happened to personality? Do you know specifically? Does the Urantia Book say what happened to personality?
No, they're very vague about it, Jill.
What do you mean?
Personality is the gift of God,
Right.
right? Which we don't really, as far as I'm concerned and aware of, we don't really know at what point the gift of God is made, right? In the process of human of body evolution from fetus to you are born and just I don't think the Urantia Book says when the God the Father himself
Instills personality.
instills the personality, right? But he does as a personal act of will.
Yeah.
It's a personal act of will of the universal Father. Right? So, and I was actually listening to a paper, I think the one you read that last week on Wednesday, it is about the personality.
I can't remember.
We covered a lot of ground just in the first two sections. We spent 2 hours just on the first two sections. So if y'all have not listened to that, I recommend you go listen to that.
We were talking about
Excellent,
the kids.
excellent meeting.
Right. I'm not sure what I was going to refer to. I just forgot my train of thought. But the thing is, my question is about. What I was going to refer to is that the narrator of that paper was saying personality, even for us, is a mystery. We don't fully understand personality. There's a lot of mysteries around personality. There are a lot of things we understand, but there are a number of things we don't understand about personality.
I think it's because, we got it confused with soul and personality all being one, before.
One thing, yeah.
One
yeah.
thing.
And it doesn't really come together until the fusion.
Mm.
Then your soul, your personality, everything comes together. That's why they don't consider you a cosmic citizen until fusion, because you're in essence, I guess you could say, three different parts: your mind, right, your personality, and your soul, right? They're three different entities. And if you want to, you can almost say four different entities because of the thought adjuster, but really the thought adjuster owns the mind records. So, but what's really more interesting, and we covered this Wednesday, is the mind matrix. That's what puts all the memory patterns together. This part goes with whom? The guardian angel. So the mind and the mind matrix, that which brings it all together, are two separate entities too. Because the mind memories go with the adjuster, and the mind matrix goes with whom?
Archangel.
The archangel, the guardian angel. Guardian angel, right? And part of that mind matrix is part of the records that the archangel has a duplicate of everything. So remember, your archangel is your insurance of your soul and all your mind matrix completely. So between the mind memories of the thought adjuster and the mind matrix that the archangel has a duplicate of, there's no possibility they can lose your personality.
What's the mind matrix?
It's basically all your memory patterns put together. That's what makes your brain, is a mind matrix. Okay, but it's not part of the physical brain. It just functions within the brain. Okay, and it sounds way out there, but that's the way they explain it. Okay. So the other interesting thing is our physical body. All the things that makes our synapses fire and everything else is part of what? Paradise and the infinite spirit. It's the physical aspect of you. Okay? It's not really who you are. It's just a vessel to function within for the mind matrix, and the soul and personality. Make sense?
Could you say that one more time?
Yeah. The human body, the brain, the physical aspect, it comes from where? Paradise and the infinite spirit. All physical, everything physical makes us who us are. The atoms and all that, including the unqualified absolute for the ultimatons, all the way down to the smallest part of us. Okay? That's part of the paradise and the infinite spirit. That paradise and the infinite spirit provides a vessel. That's our body. Okay? What's on top of that is the gift from God the Father, the personality, right? The thought adjuster, another gift, and the thought adjuster keeps track of the mind memories. Who gives us mind? The infinite spirit again, right? Along with the the eternal Son, right? So these things are on top of the physical body. We function within a physical body, but all these other things are not physical, they're spiritual, right? So that's why when you go to the mansion world, they can remove the non-physical and put you in a whole new what? Vessel, a new body. And that's what we get when we get to the Urantia, the first mansion world, the Urantia body. They just take the mind matrix, the mind, the thought adjuster, the personality, and that what we call the soul, and plug it into a new vessel. Okay? And we use that new Urantia vessel for up to 5 or 6 mansion worlds.
And that's from the infinite spirit?
And that's
the
from the
Urantia body?
The Urantia body, yeah, it's from the infinite spirit, really. In paradise, if you think
In
about it.
paradise.
Because it's a physical body too, right? But when we fuse, when we get to that 5th mansion world, or if we fuse before then, okay, then we become a cosmic citizen. And when we become a cosmic citizen, that body and soul and all this becomes what? One. Okay? So it makes it more difficult for them to transport us from the Urantia to the spiritual. That's why you go through 7 resurrections. The 7 movement from the 7 mansion worlds, they actually move that who you are to each new body. When you hit the last one, you go to Jerusalem, right? At that point, you're pretty much a fused, adjuster cosmic citizen. At that point, they don't move you from body to body anymore. What do? They tweak you. They tune you from that point on. And what's the last major change? When we go from Urantia to spirit, right? And then when we hit spirit, they tune us 6 more times till we get to paradise, right? When's the 7th come? The 7th
After the super universes are
settled in light and life, and the full fruition of the God the Supreme comes to being, then we'll be 7th stage spirits all at the same time. That's progression. Okay? Quite a trip. Well, I never dreamed we'd go all the way through this from this. But that's the overall. Right? Does that make sense? Okay. Well, let's. Did we finish this one? Yeah, we did. Okay. Let's move on to the next one. Did I confuse everybody, or did I help it out?
Yeah, that was extremely helpful.
Okay. Who's up? I think you are, Melanie.
As a result of this commonplace incident, the report was rapidly spread through Capernaum that Jesus had cast a demon out of a man and miraculously healed him in the synagogue at the conclusion of his afternoon sermon. The Sabbath was just the time for the rapid and effective spreading of such a startling rumor. This report was also carried to all the small settlements around Capernaum, and many of the people believed it.
So it spread like wildfire, didn't it? All right.
People like rumors.
Huh?
People like rumors.
They love it.
Well, but you can blame them. I mean, they are ignorant, right?
Uh-huh.
So I guess the problem was at the onset is starting a rumor without being sure, right? Which many of us
We're all
make
guilty.
a lot of those mistakes, right?
Yeah, we're all guilty of that at one time or another,
Yeah.
right?
The cooking and the housework at the large CBD home, where Jesus and 12 made their headquarters, was for the most part done by Simon Peter's wife and her mother. Peter's home was near that of the CBD, and Jesus and his friends stopped there on the way from the synagogue because Peter's wife's mother had for several days been sick with chills and fever. Now, he changed that at about the time Jesus stood over the sick woman, holding her hand, smoothing her brow, and speaking words of comfort and encouragement. The fever left her. Jesus had not yet had time to explain to his apostles that no miracle had been wrought at the synagogue, and with this instance so fresh and vivid in their minds, and recalling the water and the wine at Cana, they seized upon this coincidence as another miracle, and some of them rushed out to spread the news of the sea.
Okay. We remember from last Wednesday, the water and the wine was due to whom during that wedding?
Physical control. Or
No,
the
the power.
Energy transfer.
Energy transfer.
Energy transformers. See how this all fits together? All right.
Now, the same Peter that we're talking about is one of the apostles.
Yes.
So,
Yeah,
and,
Simon
so he
Peter.
had a wife, and his mother or wife's mother were doing the cooking, right?
Yeah. And he had 3 kids too, I believe. I think it was Simon Peter who had 3 children. So, yeah, can y'all even imagine these grown fishermen many of them had kids and children who they were responsible for, right? Giving up their work to go follow a religious teacher
Yeah.
How old were those kids?
at various ages. Various ages. So,
Yeah, that's definitely something that we don't hear much of that in the Urantia Book.
No.
I remember hearing about the fact that the work of the Father is even more important than the work of the universal Father is even more important than the work as the human Father.
yeah.
But still, I mean, it's like if you asked me to give up my kids now, I feel like, okay, I would be responsible. So it's kind of
I know. Well, even back then, that responsibility was considered even more so back in the time of
That was a
Jesus.
struggle to stay alive.
Lord have mercy, I can't even imagine making a decision to follow someone unless you were so sure that they were actually the Son of God that it would, it amazes me.
But what about those kids? They need a father. They need education. They need who's going to provide for them.
Yeah,
It's
I know.
like
Somebody's got to be responsible for it, right?
But it also said that, who was it that took care of the finances?
Andrew.
No,
No, it was actually Judas.
It was-
took care-
Well, Judas took care of the finances, but
Matthew.
Matthew,
Yeah.
Matthew, the tax
Matthew
collector,
made sure that
he made sure
provided-
everybody, all the
Yeah.
children of the apostles were taken care of.
Yeah.
So that was apparently kind of settled in front, maybe, or it evolved.
Yeah, it evolved because Matthew actually ended up totally penniless.
He
by
used
the-
all his own funds.
used all his own funds to make sure that all the apostles' children and everything were provided for.
Yeah, but that's the financial aspect. There is still the personal aspect, the
Yeah.
education aspect. There is
Yeah,
the emotional aspect. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. That's
Well,
That's
it's
struggle.
kind of interesting when you make a commitment. You have to realize to what extent that commitment is, and we've experienced. Me and Diane's experienced that. Just trying to keep the websites going and things like that. When you make this commitment, it is not easy. It's not. But you make the commitment, you stick to it, and sometimes you have to do without, and the apostles did the same thing. When they got so low they could not provide for themselves, what did they do? They went back to the nets and they fished and brought in income. So you do what you got to do when you make a commitment to God. That's just the way it works. So let's keep going. Who's up next? Brad?
Hopefully I pronounced her name right. Amitha,
Yeah, that's fine.
Peter's mother-in-law, was suffering from malarial fever. She was not miraculously healed by Jesus at this time, not until several hours later, after sundown, was for a cure effected in connection with the extraordinary event which occurred in the front yard at the Zebedee home.
I love this story because of.
I love that story of the healing.
Yes.
And these cases are typical of the manner in which a wonder-seeking generation and a miracle-minded people unfailingly seized upon all such coincidences as a pretext for proclaiming that another miracle had been wrought by Jesus.
It's kind of funny, when I first started reading this book, I could not comprehend why Jesus just didn't do miracles all the time. I thought, what a way to get known, you know, I mean, to the whole world. Go ahead.
The healing at sundown. By the time Jesus and his apostles had made ready to partake of their evening meal near the end of this eventful Sabbath day, all Capernaum Capernaum and its environs were agog over these reputed miracles of healing, and all who were sick or afflicted began preparations to go to Jesus or to have themselves carried there by their friends just as soon as the sun went down. According to Jewish teaching, it was not permissible even to go in quest of health during the sacred hours of the Sabbath.
So they couldn't even request to be healed on the Sabbath until the sun went down, right?
And once the sun was down, it's the next day.
That's right, it's considered the next day. Therefore, as soon as the sun sank beneath the horizon, scores of afflicted men, women, and children began to make their way toward the Zebedee home in Bethsaida. One man started out with his paralyzed daughter just as soon as the sun sank behind his neighbor's house.
Anxious.
The whole day's events had set the stage for this extraordinary sundown scene. Even the text Jesus had used for the afternoon sermon had intimated that sickness should be banished, and he had spoken with such unprecedented power and authority. His message was so compelling. While he made no appeal to human authority, he did speak directly to the conscience and souls of men. Though he did not resort to logic, legal quibbles, or clever sayings, he did make a powerful, direct, clear, and personal appeal to the hearts of his hearers.
So this is, in essence, his command for us to do what? Figure out how to heal our illnesses. Not, right? Not cover them up with a bunch of drugs and keep billing people for money over and over and over and over. It's not a profit motive, it's a healing motive, right? So when you talk to these people that own these drug companies, you need to explain to them that the idea is to heal, not to make money off of people, right? And they miss out on that a lot, don't they? There's a lot of people put in bankruptcy because they can't afford their medications. Okay.
That Sabbath was a great day in the earth life of Jesus. Yes, in the life of a universe. To all local universe intents and purposes, the little Jewish city of Capernaum was the real capital of Lebanon. The handful of Jews in the Capernaum synagogue were not the only beings to hear the momentous closing statement of Jesus' son. Hate is the shadow of fear, revenge the mask of cowardice. Neither could his hearers forget his blasphemous declaring, "Man is the Son of God, not a child of the devil."
That's about as plain as you can be. And we still believe for up to this century that we were all children of the devil.
We were born as children.
Born of the children. That's what we were taught.
We have to be saved.
Yeah. Just the opposite, right?
Okay, soon after the setting of the sun, as Jesus and his apostles still lingered about the supper table, Peter's wife heard voices in the front yard, and on going to the door, saw a large company of sick folks assembling, and that the road from Capernaum was crowded by those who were on their way to seek healing at Jesus' hands. On seeing this sight, she went at once and informed her husband, who told Jesus.
So imagine this lady going to her front door, looking
Thank
out,
you.
and the road's just overrun with sick people, and as far as she could see, more were coming. Okay?
What an event.
What an event. Okay?
When the master stepped out of the front entrance of Zebedee's house, his eyes met an array of stricken and afflicted humanity. He gazed upon almost 1,000 sick and ailing human beings. At least that was the number of persons gathered together before him. Not all present were afflicted. Some had come assisting their loved ones in his effort to secure healing.
So there's almost 1,000 people there.
The sight of these afflicted mortals, men, women, and children, suffering in large measure as a result of the mistakes and misdeeds of his own trusted sons of universe administration, peculiarly touched the human heart of Jesus and challenged the divine mercy of the benevolent Creator Son. But Jesus well knew he could never build an enduring spiritual movement upon the foundation of purely material wonders. It had been his consistent policy to refrain from exhibiting his creator prerogatives, not since Canaan had the supernatural or miraculous attended his teaching. Still, this afflicted multitude touched his sympathetic heart and mightily appealed to his understanding affection.
So he felt sorry for him, didn't he? Okay, before we get off this paragraph, I want to bring the first sentence to
The
life.
misdeeds of his untrusted sons of the universe administration.
That's right.
That's that.
Who's he talking about? Caligastia, right? The Caligastia 100 are the ones that rebelled, right? Adam and Eve, because if Adam and Eve had done their job, because the influx of violet blood would have taken care of almost all disease on this planet. Do y'all realize that? That was part of the Adam and Eve process when the violet blood was mixed with the barbarians, that it would take care of most of the disease of the planet. The other thing, things like insects and things that plague us now, if Caligastia 100 would have done their job, they would have taught the barbarians how to eradicate all these things like mosquitoes and things like that. That
Eradicate that?
Or be
Yes.
able to,
we'll get rid of many of them.
stages.
Yeah, we would have gotten rid of most of the things on this planet that are just aggravation.
like killing them. There
Yeah.
would be no mosquitoes, no.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
I thought that was so critical to the
Yes.
balance of the natural
They
world.
would have adapted.
Yeah, they would have been that.
They needed something else.
Yeah. So all these things that the Caligastia 100 would have done if it was done properly, and their descendants, and then all the things that Adam and Eve and the children of Adam and Eve would have taken care of, that is what he's talking about, the mistakes and misdeeds, because this illnesses that plague our country today, most of them would have been taken care of. And those that weren't taken care of would have been so much less that it wouldn't have been much of an issue. You understand?
Yeah.
That's the importance of the Adam and Eve project when they came to the planet. And that's why the default was so bad. Okay? When God plans something out, it's meant to be carried out. That's the whole point. Okay. A voice from the front yard exclaimed, "Master, speak the word, restore our health, heal our diseases, and save our souls." No sooner had these words been uttered than a vast retinue of seraphim, physical controllers, life carriers, and midwayers, such as always attended the incarnate creator of a universe, made themselves ready to act with creative power should their sovereign give the signal. This is one of those moments in the earth career of Jesus in which divine wisdom and human compassion were so interlocked in the judgment of the Son of Man that he sought refuge in appeal to the Father in his Father's will. So this was the will of the Father, what was about to happen, right? Under the physical controllers. Who is under the physical controllers we just studied about turn the water to the wine?
The energy.
The energy transformers, right? That's the material guys that change the material level of things during a miracle, okay? All right.
When Peter implored the Master to heed their cry for help, Jesus, looking down on the afflicted throng, answered, I have come into this world to reveal the Father and establish his kingdom. For this purpose have I lived my life to this hour. If, therefore, it should be the will of him who sent me, and not inconsistent with my dedication to the proclamation of the gospel of the kingdom of heaven, I would desire to see my children made whole. But the further words of Jesus were lost in the tumult.
So all he had to do was will it, and if it was the will of God, boom, right? All right. Jim.
Jesus had passed the responsibility of this healing decision to the ruling of his Father. Evidently, the Father's will interposed no objection, for the words of the Master had scarcely been heard when the assembly of celestial personalities serving under the command of Jesus' personalized thought adjuster was mightily disturbed. The vast retinue descended into the midst of this motley throng of afflicted mortals, and in a moment of time, 683 men, women, and children were made whole, were perfectly healed of all their physical diseases and other material disorders. Such a scene was never witnessed on earth before that day, nor since. And for those of us who were present to behold this great way of living, it was indeed a thrilling spectacle.
683 individuals he completely.
Now another thing regarding the deferring to the will of the Father,
Yes.
there are two big differences with us. One is the creator, and we are not. And second, he had already fused, so he thought that justice was already personal.
Well, he didn't fuse. That
Well, than the equivalent of fusing.
yeah, equivalent of fuse. Yeah,
His thought adjuster was personalized,
it's personal.
which means he was talking to he had personality, so that his thought adjuster had will. He was not intertwined with his will. So
Yeah.
he was talking to his thought adjuster the way we are talking to each other.
Right.
Right? So I guess my common question, I don't know if it's a comment or a question, is how would this translate in our life when we say, okay, we want to defer to the will of the Father because we are committed to do the will of the Father. But guess what? We can't do that. Because in a way, when I say we can do that in the way he did this time, where he said, oh, I'll defer to it and happens what happens, right?
But we don't have creator personality, prerogatives either. We're talking about a divine being. We do not have creator prerogatives. So we can't just will that something be done, and if it's the will of God, it happens. But what we can do is say, if it's the will of God, turn it over to the Father, and our thought adjuster, even though it's not personalized, is in constant communication with God the Father. It is God the Father within us. So if it's the will of God, whatever it is, if it's within our prerogatives as a being, then that will come to pass. And if not, those beings that are capable of doing that thing can make that happen. You know, but that's the problem I always had with faith healers. You know, you see them on TV and that sort of thing. Most of them do it for self-aggrandizement, right? You know, you see that a lot. The question I have is, do they have creative prerogatives? No. But are they doing it through faith? Jesus says, greater works than these can we do through faith. So that is the working of God the Father. But how many people do we know actually has enough faith to totally trust God's will totally. That's where the rub comes in, right? And that's what our goal is. When we get so that our will is God's will, we're ready to fuse, right? That's part of the fusion process. So, it's kind of a catch-22, any way you look at it. But the reason the healing happened here is why? Because Jesus of Nazareth was Michael of Nebanon, the creator son of the local universe. And as a creator son, he had already created everything in this local universe. It was his agencies that created all the celestial beings, everything, between him and the creative mother spirit. So, does he have the creative power to change anything in his universe immediately? Of course he does. And that's what all these other beings do. The master physical controllers, the energy transformers, and things like that. They work for Michael. And the reason they work for Michael is because he created all of them, right?
Every one of them.
Every one of them. So if it's his will that something happens, as long as it's within the will of the Father, it's immediate. It takes no time whatsoever. They just go to work and it's done. This miracle is a miracle in all senses of the word of a miracle. The way it works is he has agencies to do these things for him. It's not like magic. People think, it's like magic, it just happens. It doesn't just happen. He has agencies to make these things happen. He created the agencies that make these things happen. If you want to talk about a miracle, the miracle is him being able to create the agencies that make these things happen. That's the miracle, right?
And then to be so coordinated.
Yeah, and to be so coordinated instantaneously. What did they say here? Let me go back here. Who they list here?
Controllers.
Physical controllers.
Life carriers, midwayers.
Life carriers. The amount of beings it takes to do this is just phenomenal. Here we go. Seraphim, physical controllers, life carriers, and midwayers. Is that all that was there? No. Each one of these entities has sub-entities that work with them too. Seraphim, what do they have? Cherubim and Seraphim, right? Physical controllers, they have energy transformers, master physical controllers. Life carriers. Life carriers are the beings that actually create the molecules, the DNA, everything from the very scratch of our creation. Okay? Midwayers, they're between angels and us. They are in between. So they can manipulate matter, they can make angels visible to us, they can make themselves visible to us. So we have like a vast group of beings well above us that make these things happen, right? So the miracle is that Jesus is the Creator Son. That's the miracle, right? Not the healing. The healing is well within His capability, right? And it still is today, right? I mean, nothing's changed as far as that's concerned. But if it's the will of God, though, that's the rub there, right? It has to be the will of God, and it has to be within the will of whom? The Creator Son, right? Because He created us. You think God the Father is going to step in and overstep the bounds of the Creator Son? No. Because the Creator Son is what? His representation of Himself in the flesh. Right? He's our connection to divinity. Any way you look at it.
Pretty picture, by the way.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That was a little picture.
Okay.
In my comment, I was not so much. I was not referring at the healing aspect. I was referring to the delegating the decision.
Yeah.
And I think the fundamental aspect is that we are supposed to make the decision. We are supposed to raise ourselves with the help of the full adjuster
That's
to
true.
the divine level, so that our decisions are aligned and tuned with divine.
Right.
That's what. But he had passed that level.
Yeah.
Right? And his thought adjuster had been personal as well. Right?
Yeah.
Our thought adjuster will, well, if we do the right thing, will say with us, it will be personalized through us.
Yes.
right? Which means that we'll be constantly seeking that attunement, and we make the decision for the Father just and for God.
Yeah.
Right? In that case, he was deferring it, right?
Yes.
Something that, if I understand correctly, that's because his Father's gesture was personalized, which
Yeah.
is not in our case. So I don't think we can defer. The only thing I can, in thinking about deferring, is that when we are like in a situation, life situation, whatever that is, and we are like, okay, well, it is what it is, what do we do? And we defer is like we let the life take its course, right? As we figure out how to deal with it.
Yeah.
And that's the best thing I can think of.
And trying to align our life so that we're always doing the will of God. That's the big key. You know, it's not any one decision, it's all decisions.
But there is no deferring. You are tuning yourself. So
You're tuning yourself.
And when it's
together.
time to make a decision, when you make a decision, you make a decision.
Yeah, and in this case, Jesus already made a sympathetic decision that he wanted his children healed.
Desire them.
He desired them healed. Okay? And the only thing that kept Jesus from just healing them was what? He wanted to make sure it was, doing that here. He wanted to make sure it was within the will of God that he do that.
And I would further say that he wanted to do that because his mission of
Was not to heal
revealing
people. Yeah.
revealing God
Yeah.
the Father cannot be sustained by healing.
No.
Therefore, it's not in directly part of his mission.
Right.
Right?
And
That's
he had already made that decision well
Right.
before this.
that's right.
Yeah.
And that should really be our mission today, is to reveal the Father and establish His kingdom.
That's
You
right.
know, we get all concerned about the healing aspects, and yet everybody's so confused about God.
Yeah.
They really, they don't really have that relationship with Him. So that's really where we need to be. We need to be way back there trying to establish that relationship with the Father, not worrying about all the complexities that we deal with while we're here.
Personally, for sure. However, what I would say that Jesus' mission was about revealing God the Father as a personal relationship, and that was, in a way, his exclusive mission. Right? He didn't want to partake in all the social and discussion.
Mhm.
Whereas for us, it is our responsibility as well to do that, to worry about the healing of ourselves and the others. So
Mhm.
having a health system, it's our responsibility to do the politics, it's our responsibility to do the education, it's our responsibility to do all that. So we can't escape that either.
Those will all fall in line. Okay, that's not to be excluded. It's like what you were saying earlier about how the apostles had children and those responsibilities. Okay, well, if you died right now, are your children going to just, be vanished? You see, there's always God. And that's what the apostles seen, is they knew that they could follow God and their children were still going to be taken care of because there is God. So when we go out here and put everything before that relationship, that's where we got it backwards. We got to have God first, everything else will come and fall into place.
For me, I got a big cut. Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I want to make one more point about all this. The least, this is going to sound crazy coming from a former doctor, but I'm going to say it anyway. The least important part of our life is our physical body. The most important part of our life is our spiritual soul, right? The reason we have to keep ourselves healthy is so that we can do the work of the soul. That's why we have a body, not the other way around, right? So as long as I'm healthy enough to keep doing my spiritual work, I'm healthy enough. I'm not perfect. I know I got things wrong, and disease is a common thing on this planet. I'm not going to dwell on the disease as long as I can function. And we want to keep people as healthy as they possibly can so they can function, but we want to keep them healthy even more. Why? So that they can live a fulfilling spiritual life. That's what it's about. The body is secondary to the spiritual, any way you look at it. Okay, and that's all I want to say about it. Okay? Anyway, let's keep going. I hope Diane was not up to read. Was she up to read?
No, but it's my turn up.
Okay, go ahead.
But of all the beings who were astonished at this sudden and unexpected outbreak of supernatural healing, Jesus was the most surprised. In a moment when his human interests and sympathies were focused upon the scene of suffering and affliction there spread out before him, he neglected to bear in his human mind the admonitory warnings of his personalized adjuster regarding the impossibility of limiting the time element of the Creator prerogatives of the Creator's Son under certain conditions and in certain circumstances. Jesus desired to see these suffering mortals made whole if his Father's will would not thereby be violated. The personalized adjuster of Jesus instantly ruled that such an act of creative energy at that time would not transgress the will of the Paradise Father. And by such a decision, in view of Jesus' preceding expression of healing desire, the creative act was what a Creator's Son desires, and his Father's will is.
Is. Capital is. Right?
Capital I-S. Not in all of Jesus' subsequent earth life did another such en masse physical healing of mortals take place.
Okay, the most important sentence in this is right there. What a Creator's Son desires and his Father wills is. In other words, it's
Instantaneous.
Right. Got my tongue all twisted up. Don't you think that's important? You know?
As might have been expected, the fame of the Sundown healing at Bethsaida and Capernaum spread throughout all Galilee and Judea and to the regions beyond. Once more were the fears of Herod aroused, and he sent watchers to report on the work and teachings of Jesus, and to ascertain if he was the former carpenter of Nazareth or John the Baptist risen from the dead.
Fear-based, right? So that all comes down to.
Chiefly because of this unintended demonstration of physical healing. Henceforth, throughout the remainder of his earth career, Jesus became as much a physician as a preacher. True, he continued his teaching, but his personal work consisted mostly in ministering to the sick and the distressed, while his apostles did the work of public preaching and baptizing believers.
See, because people got to know him as a healer, that's what they wanted him for all the time, right? But the majority of those who were recipients of supernatural or creative physical healing at the Sundown demonstration of divine energy were not permanently spiritually benefited by this extraordinary manifestation of mercy. A small number were truly edified by this physical ministry, but the spiritual kingdom was not advanced in the hearts of men by this amazing eruption of timeless creative healing.
It's a shame.
It is a shame. And that's what Jesus knew. That's why he didn't want to go around doing
That's what
this.
it was about.
Yeah,
That's not going to bring people to the Father.
it's not. You know, and that's the hardest thing for us to understand too. This was the hardest thing for me to understand in 1973 when I started reading this book. I kept, by the time I finished the book, I thought, why didn't he just go around healing everybody all the time? You know, so lack of wisdom on my part. Billy?
The healing wonders which every now and then attended Jesus' mission on earth were not a part of his plan of proclaiming the kingdom. They were incidentally inherent in having on earth a divine being of well-nigh unlimited creator prerogatives in association with an unprecedented combination of divine mercy and human sympathy. But such so-called miracles gave Jesus much trouble in that they provided prejudice-raising publicity and afforded much unsought notoriety.
So what happened after this? Everywhere Jesus went, they wanted him to do some sort of miracle so that they could see it, didn't they? And that's what he was afraid of. Okay? Jill, would you take forward the evening after?
For the evening after. Throughout the evening following the great outburst of healing, rejoicing and happy calm overran Zebedee home, and the apostles of Jesus were keyed up to the highest pitch of emotional enthusiasm. For a human standpoint, this was probably the greatest day of all the great days of their association with Jesus. At no time before or after the day of hope surged to such heights of confident expectation. Jesus had told them only a few days before, and when they were yet within the borders of Samaria, that the hour had come when the kingdom was to be proclaimed in power, and now their eyes had seen what they supposed was the fulfillment of the promise. They were thrilled by the vision of what was to come. This amazing manifestation of healing power was just the beginning. Their lingering doubts of Jesus' divinity were banished. They were literally intoxicated with the ecstasy of the bewildered enchantment.
So they all were on cloud 9, right? It's like this was just the start of the miracles to come.
But when they sought for Jesus, they could not find him. The master was much perturbed by what had happened. These men, women, and children who had been healed of diverse diseases lingered late into the evening, hoping for Jesus' return, that they might thank him. The apostles could not understand the master's conduct as the hours passed and he remained in seclusion. Their joy would have been full and perfect but for his continued absence. When Jesus did return to their midst, the hour was late, and practically all of the beneficiaries of the healing episode had gone to their homes. Jesus refused the congratulations and adoration of the 12 and the others who had lingered to greet him, only saying, "Rejoice not that my Father is powerful to heal the body, but rather that he is mighty to save the soul. Let us go to our rest, for tomorrow we must be about the Father's business."
And what is the Father's business? The soul, right? To save the soul.
And again did 12 disappointed, perplexed, and heart-sorrowing men go to their rest. Few of them, except the twins, slept much that night. No sooner would the Master do something to cheer the souls and gladden the hearts of his apostles, than he seemed immediately to dash their hopes in pieces and utterly to demolish the foundations of their courage and enthusiasm. As these bewildered fishermen looked into each other's eyes, there was but one thought: we cannot understand him. What does all this mean?
We've been asking that for years, haven't they?
Well, and you know, that's just the whole difference in having a spiritual look as the physical world. They just couldn't let go of that physical world and move up to, hey, the real joy is over here in the spirit, you know.
Yeah.
And every time Jesus is going, man, this physical, will you leave it alone? And come on, join me here, you know.
It's almost like saying it's not important, is it?
No, it's really not.
Listen to what I say, that's what's important. Okay.
Okay, early Sunday morning. Neither did Jesus sleep much that Saturday night. He realized that the world was filled with physical distress and overrun with material difficulties, and he contemplated the great danger of being compelled to devote so much of his time to the care of the sick and afflicted, as his mission of establishing the spiritual kingdom in the hearts of men would be interfered with, or at least subordinated to the ministry of things physical. Because of these and similar thoughts which occupied the mortal mind of Jesus during the night, he arose that Sunday morning long before daybreak and went all alone to one of his favorite places for communion with the Father. The theme of Jesus' prayer on the early morning was for wisdom and judgment, that he might not allow his human sympathy joined with his divine mercy to make such an appeal to him in the presence of mortal suffering that all his time would be occupied with physical ministry to the neglect of the spiritual. Though he did not wish altogether to avoid ministering to the sick, he knew that he must also do the more important work of spiritual teaching and religious training.
Quite a dilemma, isn't it? Jesus went out on the hills to pray so many times because there were no private rooms suitable for his personal devotions. No.
Peter could not sleep that night, so very early, shortly after Jesus had gone out to pray, he aroused James and John, and the three went to find their master. After more than an hour's search, they found Jesus and besought him to tell them the reason for his strange conduct. They desired to know why he appeared to be troubled by the mighty outpouring of the Spirit of healing, when all the people were overjoyed and his apostles so much rejoiced.
For more than 4 hours, Jesus endeavored to explain to his 3 apostles what had happened. He taught them about what had transpired and explained the dangers of such manifestations. Jesus confided to them the reason for his coming forward. He sought to make plain to his personal associates the real reasons why the kingdom of the Father could not be built upon wonder working in physical healing, but they could not come to this issue.
Some things never change, do they?
Meanwhile, early Sunday morning, other crowds of afflicted souls and many curiosity seekers began to gather about the house of Zebedee. They clamored to see Jesus. Andrew and the apostles were so perplexed that while Simon Zealots talked to the assembly, Andrew, with several of his associates, went to find Jesus. When Andrew had located Jesus, in company with the three, he said, "Master, why do you leave us alone with the multitude? Behold, all men seek you. Never before have so many sought after your teaching. Even now the house is surrounded by those who have come from near and far because of your mighty works. Will you not return with us to minister to them?"
I wanted to see more miracles, didn't they?
They didn't come for his teaching. They
No,
just
they
came
came
for
for
his
the miracles.
physical
To be
miracles.
healed.
That's right.
I would have too.
Yeah.
When Jesus heard this, he answered, "Andrew, have I not taught you and these others that my mission on earth is the revelation of the Father, and my message the proclamation of the kingdom of heaven? How is it then that you would have me turn aside from my work for the gratification of the curious and for the satisfaction of those who seek for signs and wonders? Have we not been among these people all these months, and have they flocked in multitudes to hear the good news of the kingdom? Why have they now come to besiege us? Is it not because of the healing of their physical bodies rather than as a result of the reception of spiritual truth for the salvation of their souls? When men are attracted to us because of extraordinary manifestations, many of them come seeking not for truth and salvation, but rather in quest of healing for their physical ailments and to secure deliverance from their material difficulties.
So it is today.
All this time I have been, somebody,
In
Capernaum?
Capernaum.
Capernaum, okay. And both in the synagogue and by the seaside have I proclaimed the good news of the kingdom to all who had ears to hear and hearts to receive the truth. It is not the will of my Father that I should return with you to cater to these curious ones and to become occupied with the ministry of things physical to the exclusion of the spiritual. I have ordained you to preach the gospel and ministry to the sick, minister to the sick, but I must not become engrossed in healing to the exclusion of my teaching. No, Andrew, I will not return with you. Go and tell the people to believe in that which we have taught them and to rejoice in the liberty of the sons of God, and make ready for our departure for the other cities of Galilee, where the way has already been prepared for the preaching of the good tidings of the kingdom. It was for this purpose that I came forth from the Father. Go, then, and prepare for our immediate departure, while I here await your return.
Now, who prepared these people for the preaching of the gospel?
John the Baptist.
John the Baptist, that's right. When Jesus had spoken, Andrew and his fellow apostles sorrowfully made their way back to Zebedee's house, dismissed the assembled multitude, and quickly made ready for the journey as Jesus had directed. And so on the afternoon of Sunday, January 18th, AD 28, Jesus and the apostles started out upon their first really public and open preaching tour of the cities of Galilee. On the first tour, they preached the gospel of the kingdom in many cities, but they did not visit Nazareth.
That Sunday afternoon, shortly after Jesus and his apostles had left for Ramon,
Ramon, yeah, either one would be.
his brothers James and Jude came to see him, calling at Zebedee's house. About noon of that day, Jude sought out his brother James and insisted that they go to Jesus. By the time James consented to go with Jude, Jesus had already departed.
Snooze, you lose, right?
The apostles were loath to leave the great interest which had been aroused at Capernaum. Peter calculated that no less than 1,000 believers could have been baptized. Jesus listened to them patiently, but he would not consent to it. Silence prevailed for a season, and then Thomas addressed his fellow apostles, saying, "Let's go. The Master has spoken. No matter if you can fully comprehend the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, but one thing we are certain, we follow a teacher who seeks the glory for himself." And reluctantly they went forth to preach the good tidings in the cities of Galilee.
And that's that. Next time, we'll do the first preaching tour of Galilee. Let's have a little short prayer and we'll quit for this evening. Lynn, would you like to pray first today?
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time we've had together to once again study this new revelation. We thank you for our safe transportation here, and we pray for safe transportation back to our homes. We are grateful for your Son, Jesus of Nazareth. We're grateful for his creation of our universe. We're grateful for his protection of those of us who live in his universe. We ask that you continue to stay with us as we go through this week and take this information with us, that we may use it in our daily lives, that we may understand that it's more important to teach the gospel than to serve the physical. Please help us keep that in mind. We ask this in the name of Jesus of Nazareth. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for joining us from home. Please come see us in a minute.